Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going way back to 15th century Spain, and we're also going forward, yet back, to 1996, where El Grande won the Spiel des Jahres. Today, we're looking at this gigantic big box version of El Grande from Z-Man Games. Has 6 of the expansions that came out for this game and the base game in a big box edition that just came out. It's 2 to 5 players. It's a very popular historical area control game that takes 90 minutes, maybe a little longer with 5 players. Let's take a look. I'll show you how it's played. I'll see you on the other side. Now in this big box, it has a guide that shows you where all the things go in this big box for all the different expansions, all the base sets. It's a really good way to figure out where to put everything. It has a big board which keeps all the cards in there good, and it has a nice little ridge that keeps this board in there pretty good. And then of course here's all the different symbols of the different expansions that you can see that match there. So it's a nice setup and easy to put things away, and you don't need to bag a lot of stuff because the board covers all this. El Grande is played over 9 rounds, and after each of the 3rd rounds there's going to be major scoring. And how you score in this game is having the most people or controlling one of these many areas, and they're all worth a different amount of points. Now I did want to show off the Castillo on the right there, the castle, and the king in regards to a large Grande worker and a smaller meeple, that these other 2 components are pretty large. Now every player is given 9 what's called caballeros of their color, and 1 large Grande. They're giving a secret area selector disc, and they're giving 13 power cards that range from 1 all the way to 13 with different items in between there. Now to set up the game, everybody gets to put their Grande worker and 2 of their caballeros in a region that is randomly assigned by a set of cards of all these, as well as the king gets into a region and the game starts. I also wanted to point out the start player marker in this game, which is really cool. That's given to the youngest player. At the beginning of each round, a new card is flipped from each of these 5 different action types. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 essentially. So what happens is all these get flipped up. And so each of these have certain types of things that you'll be able to take as an action. And the King's card is always the only one in the 5th one. This card will be available every round. Let me go over the details of this later, but once everybody gets to see what cards are open for this round, we start in turn order and people are going to be playing cards. So secretly, starting with the start player, they're going to figure out which power card to play. Now, they're going to do it one at a time. They'll start with the start player, and they will put it face up in front of everybody so everyone will see what power card they're playing. The people after that cannot play the same number as that. The power card is 2 things. 1, it's turn order. Whoever has played the highest number is going to go first, down to the lowest number in that way of player order. Also, when it's your turn, if you've played a card, you will get that many caballeros from the supply into your court. So the supply is called the provinces. They will come into your court because you'll be placing these guys over the game. These will start to run out, and you'll need to replenish your supply here with some of these lower powered cards. So do you want to go first, or do you not really care about going first, but you need a lot more caballeros? Those are some of the decisions you make. So let's say these are the cards in order. Blue's going to go first because they have the highest number, but they won't get any caballeros to put into their court to use. They'll get first choice. Now they'll choose one of these actions and they'll take it out. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 caballeros here. This tells you how many of these you can place either before or after the special action you take. So let's go through these one at a time. For example, here you may move 2 of your caballeros and 2 foreign caballeros. Now before or after, he can place one of his from his court. So let's say he wants to move. He's going to move 2 of these guys over here, so they're fighting over here, and he's going to add his guy right there. And let's say he can move up to 2 of his other guys. Let's say he moves this guy over here. So he's moved his guys and he's done his action. And when he's done with that, he'll basically just take this and put it at the bottom of the pile to show that this pile is done. Then it would be the next player's turn. This player would get 1 of these from the supply, which is the province, into his court to use amongst the other ones that he already has. And let's just go in order just to show you how these work. So in this case, each of your opponents must return 3 caballeros in their court to their province. And then either before or after, he can place 2 caballeros. So this is my court, which is next to my cards and such, but you'll see that every other player will have to remove 3 of theirs from their court to their province, all the other colors except me. and it said I can place 2 before or after that. In this case, and again, I have to go adjacent to the king, never to the king. I'll put 1 here, and you can always put 1 in the Castillo. And this is the castle, you just drop it in there. Nobody can ever look in there, but when you drop, you say how many. So you say 1, drop 1 in the Castillo. Now let's say yellow goes next, because they're next in line. They would get 2 caballeros to put into their court, and then they can place 3 before or after this. Now they can pick these cards in any order. I'm just going left to right just for the simplicity of the video, but people will be picking all sorts of these different cards. That's the thing. From getting this, you can pick any card you want. So in this case, let's say he does a special scoring. Choose a region to be scored immediately. And the piles tend to be the same. This third pile is usually all about scoring. This one's all about moving people. So they tend to have a certain theme in that deck. So let's do this. Choose a region to score immediately. Before or after, I can place 3 caballeros. So let's say, again, I have to place adjacent to the king. I'm going to go here with this, and I'm going to throw 1 in the Castillo. So let's say he scores this region, because he has a majority. Whoever has the most is going to get this many points. In this case, it's 6. Yellow would go up 6 points. Second place is blue. They would go up 3 points. Now, if they were tied, what happens is you always take the next position lower. So these guys are tied for first, so they take the next one lower, which is 3. They each would get 3. If there was a guy with 1, now this one would get just this because these 2 guys both got this. If you tie for third, those people get nothing. That's how ties are done in this entire game. And here, the next player would be green. They'd get 5 caballeros into their court, and they'd pick one of these cards. Just say he picks this one. He can place 4 caballeros, and before or after, he can move his Grande. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So let's say he puts 2 in the caballeros, and he puts 2 over here. And moving his Grande, what that does is if you have the highest amount of people in a region when it scores and you have your Grande there in the home area, you get 2 extra points. In this case, it doesn't make much sense to move it, so let's just keep it here. And the only card left is taken by this person he's going to get 6 from the province into his court, and he's going to be able to move the king into any region and place 5 caballeros. And let's just say he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 adjacent to the king, and let's say he moves the king here. That would be his turn. That'll be the end of the first round. We'd go to the second round, and we would flip these over, everyone would look at them, and we'd do that whole process over again. And I should note that when I moved the king, that king could be moved anywhere on the board, it didn't have to be adjacent. Now after the third round, we go to a major scoring. Now when this major scoring happens, it kind of shows you what order things happen in. First, we will select a secret disc location. So this has all the places on the map. You're going to secretly place where all of your caballeros that were put into that secret castle, the Castillo, all of them are going to go to one area. So you decide which area these ones go to. Then we will lift up the Castillo and we will score it. Just like any other region, here's the scoring for the region. Pink is first, they're going to get 5. And green is second, they're going to get 3. And these 2 tied for this, so they get nothing. Then everyone is going to take their dial and put all the guys from here in the region that they selected. And so the board might look like this after they've placed. If for some reason somebody chose where the king was, well, they just take all their guys from here and put it back into their court because you can't go where the king is. Then we would go through scoring. Each region, one at a time, we would go through the scoring procedure that I just showed you. You do that for every region. Now, whoever owns the king's region will get 2 additional points. If you're in first place in your Grande worker, you would also get 2 additional points. So in this case, pink's first, so normally they get 5, but they get 2 more for this, which is 7, and 2 more for being in their home region. This does not count as majority, and so they actually would get 9 points, and blue would get 4. And you'd score it like that for all the regions. Then you start rounds 4, 5, and 6, another scoring, 7, 8, 9, another scoring. Whoever has the most points at the end is the winner. I'm going to show you 3 of the 6 expansions right now. 3 of them are 3 different decks. This is called the King and Intrigue. And so you'd select one of these, or another one, or you can actually figure out which ones you want to use. You can use them in conjunction of each other as well. Also, there's some special action cards. We don't use the normal action cards anymore. You'll take the cards that have the amount of players in the game, and you'll put these cards out in Intrigue and King's card, and like this for 5 players, Caballeros in the middle. You also will no longer use the power cards in the game. You will use these special power cards which have actions with them. And there are basically 18 of these cards. You're only going to use 13 of them, so you're going to select which 5 you're not going to use and take out of the game. Now just to show you a little bit, here's 3 cards from the blue players. Now, for example, they go up to 180, but here's 160, where when you play this, the same thing's going to happen. It's going to be highest to lowest. These would be from different colors, for example. And the highest one has to take the king's card, and then the next highest one has to go this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. So the highest number is always going to take this action. The last player is always going to take this action. These 3 players will use the action on their cards. So if you had an action on your card but you were last, you don't take this, you take this. Same for the king. Otherwise, you take the special action on your card. So when you're selecting your cards, not only are you selecting what order you're in, you're also trying to select which action you might want to do, so you have a little bit more control. And what the second and third expansions do, again, it's just more cards, different values of different numbers, and different actions. So it's just more of the same type of thing, but it works the same way, where you can just basically use these as actions, and there's the third one with the different numbers and different actions. The anniversary expansion comes with a little flag token, and at the beginning of the game, in your home region, you place the flag bearer under one of your caballeros. This is the flag bearer. If this guy moves, the flag moves with them. This guy helps break ties. So for example, we have 2 and 2, and because he has the flag, he would win the tie and get those 7 points. However, if the red player had his flag and they both had their flag bearer and they were tied, you'd use the normal tie-breaking rules. That's the anniversary expansion. In the Grandissimo expansion, remember this region here used to be nothing? Well, now it's a new region called Portugal, and it scores like a normal region, but there's only first place only for 5 points. In addition, there is a 6th and 7th stack of cards that come out for the action cards. And when these get up there, some of them, they're going to have different actions using some of these different characters. So we have a Spanish Inquisitor, we have the Joker, we have the Queen. And some of those will do certain things depending on some of these actions. For example, you may place the General Inquisitor card in front of you. You must discard this before the next general scoring. I'll tell you what these guys do in just a moment. But also, there'll either be a prison, or sometimes there is a ship in some of these. Like this one is a ship tile. You could take this action. So you're going to be taking a ship action and or a prison action, possibly using some people as well. Now there's ship tiles, there's 2 of these in the game, and if there's one available, you grab it. If none are available, you grab it from somebody else, even if it may have some caballeros already on it. Then when you place caballeros in regions, you can put them on the ship. Then at the beginning of your turn, you still have this, you can place you have to place all the guys here in a coastal region. And coastal regions are any of the ones that are on the coast of the board, and they have an anchor symbol to show. So in this case, I would add all of them to one of these regions, for example. When you take a prison action, you can take any caballeros from the board, yours or somebody else's, and put it in the prison. Then when the player that has this takes the king action, they can decide to pardon this or not. If they don't pardon him, the guy stays here. If he pardons him, he can place all the people that are on this prison into any region of their choice. Now this 7th stack says you can place the Queen or Jester in front of you, and we already talked about the Spanish Inquisitor, so let's talk about these a little more. Now, getting this Spanish Inquisition gets the General Inquisitor card, which allows you to take 2 of the black mercenary meeples, and then each time that you move people, you can move these with them into other regions, but then you have to discard this before the next general scoring. Now the Jester and the Queen, you get them by selecting the 7th stack action card. The Queen allows you to take either an additional caballeros from your province or place an additional one from your court. The Jester allows you to take someone from your province and put it into another player's court, and then when they place someone from their court, they have to place one of your guys too. And there's the Grand Inquisitor and Colonies expansion, which brings a new side of the board. You flip the board over, you can see this by the ship. There's new areas. There's America, there's a ship, there's Africa, there's Francia. Now Francia can only have 3 caballeros ever on here. And you're going to get 3 points for first place, 1 point for second place. And as you put your 3 guys that can only be here, they get put on here. This one gets 2 additional points, and this one gets 1 additional point. So getting there early helps, and having the majority helps. The ship is an intermediary place that you can go when you're trying to go to America or Africa. If you have a guy here, when scoring happens, on the captain space, you'll get 3. Otherwise, if your guys are here, you'll get nothing. And you move people to here when the king is in any coastal region. Now, America, you can only get to from the ship. You can only move a guy from the ship there. If you have a guy in the viceroy spot, he'll get 5 points. He doesn't count towards the majority, and the majority, only the first player gets 4 points. Also, what can happen is some action cards will allow some gold to go in America. If you have a caballeros there, he gets attached to it, 1 per each gold. And for free, you can move these guys back to the ship, and then on your next turn, you can move him back to Spain. And when you get a guy with gold back to Spain, you'll get 6 points for each of those. And the same thing for Africa, you can only get here from the ship. Here's the scoring, and you can also get wares. So if you have a guy in there, and an action card lets you get some wares in there, this guy gets attached to it. Again, he can go back to ship for free, and when he brings it back to Spain, he gets 4 points. Well, I was very interested in this game because it's one that's been talked about by many people for a long period of time, and it's one of those games that was out of print, and it's like, it was ridiculously expensive, and I almost bought it once, but I wasn't going to spend $80 or $90 on an older copy. And when I heard this was being reprinted earlier this year, I was pretty excited because I've been dying to kind of get my my tentacles on this one, if you will. Now, this game is most often compared to Tammany Hall, which happens to be my favorite area control game. So we'll compare that in just a moment. But let's talk about the game itself. Now, the big box, obviously it comes with everything. I showed you how everything fits. Component-wise, I like how it fit. I was surprised at how big that king figure is. That thing is huge. It looks pretty cool on the board. Now, the board itself and everything, it's all new, and the board looks great, and the components are great. I was maybe not disappointed, but I was kind of surprised that they didn't update the artwork much at all. I guess personal preference, they wanted to stick true to the original art form, and that's fine. That's a choice that they made, and some people are going to really like that they stuck with that. I would have preferred something a little bit more newer, really let it vibe that, you know, pay homage to the old, but still make it new and fresh. But that's a personal preference sort of thing. The game itself, it's straight up area control, right? I mean, you're going to be taking some actions. I like in this game, what I really like best about it is it's very streamlined. Like what you do in your turn is simple. It's like, I'm playing a card, we're gonna see who goes first, I'm gonna take an action, let's go. 9 rounds of this. But it's like, it's simple, but yet there's a lot of depth there because you're trying to think of, you know, look, every card is different, right? Every pile has its own sort of theme, and you're trying to figure out which thing to do this round and how badly do I want to go there, what are other people going to throw down. So it's got that interesting. I like how, like, the higher the power, the earlier you go, but the less guys you get. And that balance is good because sometimes you're going to be having very little amount of guys in your court, and you really want to do something first. But if you do, you might not get any guys, and that's something you're going to have to weigh, or it's like, hey, I'm going to get a ton of guys, but I'm going to go last. Is that okay? And the cool thing is the game has a lot of replayability value on its own, because even though those decks, I mean, they recycle, right? And each game, maybe you'll see the same cards, but every time a card comes up, it will mean a different thing because of how the game is. Like, a card that doesn't mean a whole lot early in some game might mean a ton late in a different game, or vice versa. So I like how those cards kind of like ebb and flow. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, depending on when they come up and what's going on in the game. I like that. Now, for a game that's this old, it did feel a little dated, but I still think there's some cool things that they did there. You know, back then, you know, that whole secret guessing thing where you're trying to figure out where are my guys in the Castillo gonna go. And there's a couple of action cards where people are secretly selecting things and certain things happen, and that's a cool aspect to this game. I really like that. Also, the whole Castillo thing, like trying to remember how many things people threw in there and being able to score that and then put them somewhere. Really cool ideas there. Those are probably my favorite parts of the game. Now, I did feel like, now let's get on to the things that I didn't like so much about the game. There's really not a whole lot I didn't like. It's a good standard area control Euro game. If you've never played it, this should be a game that everyone should at least experience because it's paved the way for so many other newer games that use this similar mechanisms. Now, in a comparison to Tammany Hall, personally, I still like Tammany Hall better because, number one, there's a lot of more interaction and negotiation that goes on, and I love that. There's a lot of backstabbing. Two, the game felt like it really scales a lot better in Tammany Hall, where whether you're playing with 3, 4, or 5, the board scales down, so it really feels the same. In this, you score less, you know, first, second, or third, whether it's 2-player, 3-player, or more, but the board is still the same. So even though it scales scoring-wise, it doesn't feel as tight as it would if the actual board scaled like it does in Tammany Hall. Also, you know, the whole one-and-done scoring in Tammany Hall makes everything, the stakes a lot higher. The other thing with this is, I'd say not a negative, but something I had a little issue with is, because of how restricted you are a little bit on where you can place adjacent to the king, sometimes it can be so that the leader, someone towards the lead makes a huge turn, gets a ton of points, and it's going to be really hard to slowly pull them back and chip away at their lead, because where the king is decides where you can play, and you can't always play where you want to be able to take them over. Unlike in Tammany Hall, where the leader has to give out special action cards to people who are not in the lead, and that brings them back up. So I feel like this could have a little bit more of a runaway leader problem. It's a little bit harder to catch up in this game. So overall, it is a good, solid game, even today. Now, those are some nitpicky things that I was just talking about. Now, so for me personally, I still like Tammany Hall as my favorite area control game. Now, that's because I like that backstab rate, I like the negotiation aspects, I like the way it scales. But this is still an excellent game, and some people are going to like this better because it's more of a true pure Euro type of game. So you can watch both of my reviews between this and that and see which one might suit your style better. But I still think it's something that everybody should try. And it's a good addition here from Z-Man Games, and that's El Grande Big Box.